felt called to be a priest when I was 18, but I didn't want to be celibate. I thought that was the bad news that came with the good news. But my university chaplain gave me an excellent book that really opened my eyes to what celibacy really is. It was a book about theology of the body by St. John Paul II, which really presented celibacy as a positive choice rather than just avoiding something. And that really transformed my understanding of it and made it something very attractive, and realised that it's a gift. It's not simply a negative discipline of the church, but it's a spiritual gift that's given personally to some people. And so it shifted my understanding completely. And then in my time in seminary, another aspect of celibacy that really clarified in my mind was being a father. That we call priests father because they are fathers. They're not biological fathers, but they're spiritual fathers. And I think that's the best way for me to understand celibacy. That the priest dedicates his life to the church so that he can be a genuine father to the faithful. And just as a father wants his children to be better than him, to do better than he did, so that's the role of a priest. That the priest's role is to help others become saints, greater saints than he is, through that fatherly care and concern. And he is called also to treat each person as if they were the only child he had, to have that real father's heart for each person. And celibacy is the gift that lets that happen. Celibacy does require a sacrifice, because it's wonderful to be a biological father. It's a wonderful vocation in itself. But there's a great blessing in being a spiritual father. My understanding of celibacy was also shaped and helped by the witness of other priests, by seeing how they lived their celibacy and seeing how they sacrificed themselves for the souls put into their charge. But I think to be a good father as a priest, to be a good celibate as a priest, you need to start by being a good son. To be a good son of God, a good son of your bishop. And you need to be a good brother. You need to be a good brother to your brother priests. That's where you find the emotional support we all need and the affection that we all need. And we see this even in the life of Jesus, that at his darkest moment in Gethsemane, he had his closest friends with him, Peter, James and John. In his most joyful moments on Mount Tabor at his transfiguration, he had those same closest friends with him, Peter, James and John. And so I think if we try to live or understand priestly celibacy in isolation without that priestly fraternity, then it doesn't really make sense and it doesn't really work. And priestly celibacy also goes with our prayer and our poverty. If we start clawing back what we've given up through a bachelor lifestyle, then it doesn't work. And celibacy impels us to a deeper life of prayer. A phrase that I've been meditating on recently is the title of the biography of Sister Claire Crockett, Alone with Christ Alone. And I think that's a wonderful guide to our prayer, that we have that exclusive heart-to-heart relationship with Christ, alone with Christ alone. And that makes sense of our celibacy, because that's where our heart is called to go and where we find our fulfillment. And it can also help us to realize that in heaven, marriage doesn't exist in the way it exists now. That the celibate lives now the life we'll all live in heaven. And so he's not, or she is not missing out on anything ultimately, but if you like, skipping the symbol, skipping that symbol of marriage. Marriage, of course, is a real thing, but ultimately it's a symbol in God's eternal plan of the life we'll all live in heaven. And so the celibate is called to give witness to that future life now, with all of our weaknesses and problems and imperfections, but nonetheless, through the grace of God, to show people now what we'll all live in heaven. And when the celibate looks at a married person, the celibate sees that beautiful, unconditional, unbreakable love of God for his people that is symbolized in marriage, and is also called to see how we are meant to love as fathers, as mothers, through our celibacy.